The last journey ended with an unsettling question. If no independent I stands behind experience, what creates the world we believe we see? Imagine a train stopping in darkness between stations. The carriage is the same for everyone. The lights have failed. Nothing moves. No explanation comes through the speakers. Yet one passenger hears danger. Another is suddenly remembering childhood. The event is shared. The world it creates is not. We usually speak about perception as though the eyes were windows and reality simply passed through them. But the mind is not a clear pane of glass. Before a moment begins to feel real, attention has already selected part of it. Memory has supplied context. Expectation has predicted what might happen next. Emotion has decided what matters. Most of this occurs too quickly to notice. By the time we say, "This is what happened," experience has already been arranged. Gaps have been filled. Certain details have moved forward. Others have disappeared. A living world has been built from an incomplete signal. That does not mean nothing exists outside us. It means we never meet the outside world without bringing something to the encounter. The Bardo carries this ordinary process toward a far more unsettling edge. When the familiar anchors of body, place, and time disappear, what remains to organize experience? And if the mind continues building, what kind of world will it build from itself? A camera records light. The mind does something stranger. It compares the present with what has already happened. It searches for patterns. It decides what belongs together and what can be ignored. You can watch this process in ordinary life. A friend reads your message but does not answer. Nothing else has happened. Still, the silence begins to acquire a shape. If you expect rejection, the silence feels cold. If you trust the relationship, it feels temporary. If you are already afraid, it may become evidence. The unanswered message is real, but the meaning surrounding it is being constructed from memory, expectation, and emotion. This is why two people can leave the same conversation carrying different events. Each builds a coherent story, and then mistakes that coherence for proof. The mind is not lying. It is doing what it was shaped to do, turning fragments into something that can be lived inside. That ability lets us recognize a face, cross a street, and understand a voice before every detail has arrived. But the same process can trap us. The Buddhist claim is not simply that the world is imaginary. It is that experience arises through conditions, and the mind is one of those conditions. So what would happen if the familiar stream of external information began to fall away? What would the mind use then to complete the picture? During life, the world keeps correcting us. The floor resists our feet. Other people contradict our memories. Morning arrives whether we are ready or not. These ordinary pressures hold experience together. They tell us where the body ends, where the room begins, and which thoughts remain private. Death, in the Bardo tradition, is described as the loss of those familiar coordinates. The body no longer provides its usual center. But the disappearance of those anchors does not immediately erase every tendency of mind. Fear still has momentum. Attachment still reaches. Memory still leaves a trace. The Bardo Thodol describes a phase often called the Cherniyid Bardo, the intermediate state associated with the experience of reality. This is a religious and contemplative map, not a scientific report from beyond death. What does experience become when the usual boundary between inner image and outer event can no longer be trusted? According to the text, appearances can arise with overwhelming force. Light, sound, color, peaceful presences, terrifying forms. They seem to confront consciousness from outside. Yet the instruction is repeated in different ways. Do not mistake what appears for an independent enemy. In ordinary life, the mind adds color to the world. Here, the teaching pushes the idea further. Without familiar reality to interrupt the process, the color may become the world, and consciousness may find itself surrounded by what it has never learned to recognize. The first great visions described in the Chönyad Bardo are not scenes of punishment. They are peaceful forms. Radiant presences appear with intense colors and light. Inside the tradition, their meaning is more intimate. They express awakened qualities of mind, clarity, openness, discernment, compassion. The encounter is also a confrontation with capacities that consciousness has failed to recognize as its own. This creates an unexpected danger. The peaceful forms are not frightening because they are cruel. They are frightening because their clarity leaves nowhere to hide. We often imagine that freedom would feel immediately comforting, but the familiar self is built from boundaries. My history, my wounds, my name, my place among other people. Remove those boundaries, and openness may not feel like liberation. It may feel like disappearance. The text describes consciousness turning away from brilliant light and moving toward dimmer, more familiar alternatives. Not because the dim light is better, but because it asks less of us. A painful identity can feel safer than an unknown freedom. They ask a sharper question. What happens when the mind encounters a reality larger than the identity it knows how to protect? Sometimes we do not run from darkness. We run from a light in which the person we defended can no longer remain unchanged. Then the imagery changes. The peaceful forms give way to wrathful ones. Fierce faces, violent movement, unbearable sound, bodies surrounded by symbols of destruction. Read literally, this can resemble an invasion of demons. But the text refuses that simple interpretation. The terrifying forms are also connected to mind. The problem is recognition. Intensity is experienced as threat. Energy becomes aggression. What cannot be understood is given a hostile face. Fear can decide what an event becomes inside experience, and once that decision is made, the body reacts to the constructed world as though no other world were possible. Think of waking from a nightmare. The shape near the door is still a figure. Your heart responds before recognition arrives. Then the coat becomes a coat. The branch touches the window. Nothing has moved, but the entire world has changed. The wrathful imagery of the Bardo magnifies that threshold. Consciousness confronts forms made unbearable by its inability to recognize them. The more completely it treats them as separate enemies, the more powerful the terror becomes. It is a warning that fear can close the distance between appearance and certainty. Hell begins to take shape when consciousness no longer sees its own participation in the world it is experiencing. The prison is not only the image, it is the conviction that the image could never have been seen another way. We do not need to die to understand this mechanism. Walk alone through an unfamiliar street at night. A person appears behind you. Their pace matches yours. Nothing has happened, but the street begins to reorganize. Doorways become places to hide. Footsteps become evidence. Even the darkness seems to move with intention. Whether justified or mistaken, fear is no longer merely an emotion inside the scene. It has become an editor of the scene. It selects details and removes neutral explanations from view. The street remains outside you, but the danger you experience is shaped by everything your nervous system has learned before. This matters because projection is often misunderstood as fantasy. It is not simply inventing an object that is not there. It is the mind completing an uncertain world with material drawn from itself. Trauma, desire, jealousy, shame, and grief each organize attention in their own way. A person who expects abandonment detects distance early. Guilt finds accusation in an ordinary face. Desperate hope can turn coincidence into a promise. We say, "The world is like this." Often what we mean is, "This is the world my history has prepared me to recognize." The Bardo removes the familiar scenery and leaves consciousness among its own unfinished tendencies. The question is no longer whether the image feels real. It will. The question is whether reality can be felt without being immediately believed. The central instruction of the Bardo Thodol is surprisingly quiet. Do not fight every appearance. Do not follow it blindly. Recognize it. Recognition does not mean replacing a frightening image with a pleasant one. It means seeing that what appears, and the awareness in which it appears, are not as separate as fear insists. An angry thought arrives. At first, it seems to describe the world. He betrayed me. She never cared. Nothing will change. Then, for a moment, the wording shifts. There is anger, and a story forming around pain. But the thought is no longer the whole sky. That small change creates distance without denial. The image remains. Its authority changes. In the Bardo, recognition interrupts the reflex that turns appearance into an external master. The peaceful form need not become a savior, nor the wrathful form an enemy. Both can be met as displays within experience. This is not solipsism. It does not claim that other people or the physical world exist only inside one private mind. It challenges the certainty that divides experience into a frightened observer and a threatening world. For one instant, the constructed world becomes visible as construction. Nothing is destroyed, yet its walls are no longer solid. And through that opening, another possibility appears. The mind may not need to escape every world it creates. It may need to see itself creating. If the Bardo reveals the mind through overwhelming images, daily life reveals it through repetition. We practice a world every day. We practice it in the conclusions we reach first, the memories we rehearse, and the people we refuse to see differently. Repeated reactions become familiar paths. Familiar paths become expectations. Expectation prepares perception for what it already knows how to find. This is not a personal failure. Many patterns were learned early. Built through loss or fear, they may have protected us once. But protection can survive long after the danger has gone. Then the pattern begins choosing which world can be seen. The teaching about projection is not simply about unusual visions after death. It is about recognition before habit becomes destiny. Each time anger becomes the only possible reading, each time shame speaks with the voice of fact, or fear completes the picture before reality has finished arriving, a world is being practiced. The Bardo asks whether consciousness can finally recognize that pattern, not suppress it, not obey it, see it. Some prisons are assembled through reactions repeated until they feel like reality itself. If habits can shape what consciousness sees, if they influence what it fears and follows, where did those patterns come from? Why do we return to the familiar, even when the familiar is suffering? To answer that, we have to look beneath the idea most people call karma.